All right, welcome everyone. Today we're inviting heaviness into our bodies. And probably as soon as I say that, you're like, I don't want any heaviness in my body. I don't want to feel heavy. I don't want to be heavy. It's much easier to sell lightness and ease than solidity. But heaviness is a superpower, according to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Towards the end, there are a bunch of siddhis mentioned. They're so-called superpowers that we can attain through regular yoga practice. And they're kind of a byproduct, not necessarily the goal, but the immovability of a mountain, the heaviness of an object that's just that you cannot move anywhere is one of those superpowers. You can think of it more physical, you can think of it more mental or more metaphorical. But fact is that astronauts, they go up in space, they're in zero gravity, they come back and their bodies are shattered. There's no bones, no muscles, also circulatory system, hormones, everything's out of whack because us as human beings, we have co-evolved with gravity. And so today's practice is going to be about inviting that, allowing density to move into our bodies, because that's how we actually build strength and the right proprioception for us to, depending on what you want, to move up into it's a handstand, or maybe it's a headstand, or maybe it's a strong warrior three. Yeah. So if you're open to that, you can come into a cross-legged seated position. Let's start with I'm not going to mirror you. I'm going to start with the right leg in front. And we're just going to sit down for a moment. If you want to roll your shoulders back a few times, you can do that. And then just noticing that this shape is a triangle at its base. So we have the two sits bones as one corner, and then the two knees as the other two corners. And triangles are one of the most stable objects. And so just noticing that. And also the whole shape looks a bit like a pyramid. The pyramid with a triangle at its base, again, is one of the most simple bodies and also the most stable. So just feeling into that like a mountain. And maybe from that solidity, your breath starts to move in a slightly different way. Maybe you feel the breath moving in and then pushing the organs down, creating space, and maybe a bit of pressure on your pelvic floor. And as you exhale, you can allow the sits bones to release further into the earth. Knees getting heavier, fronts of the thighs releasing. Good. And maybe there's some other areas in your life where you can invite that heaviness. So maybe it's a resolve that needs to be immovable, or maybe faith in yourself that you would like to strengthen, make more heavy. And maybe you want to actually build physical density in your bones and your muscles. And with that, you can bring your hands together in front of the heart. And maybe like to draw your chin in towards the heart to seal your intention in place. And then let's release the hands, and we'll just start moving right here. As you inhale, you can reach the arms out and up. Exhale, hands through center. Just starting to connect slightly, breath and movement. Inhale. And exhale. Last one like this. Inhale. And exhale. Staying just as heavy through your base as we start to move through the upper body. Inhale, arms reaching up. And as you exhale, left hand off to the side so the right arm can reach up and over. Good. And then just taking a few deep breaths into the side of your body. And quite often when we lean, the right sit bone wants to get light. So keeping the triangle as your base, just as heavy as when you were centered. And from that, maybe you start to feel some more length across the side. Let's slowly come through center. Inhale. Already keeping the left sit bone heavy as you bend up and over towards the right side this time. Left arm reaching. Both knees nice and solid. Releasing into the earth. And then inhale. Let's come back to center. And as you exhale, let's take an easy forward fold. I'm going to come off of my block. You can stay on your prop if you like. And we're just going to lean. Maybe it's just the fingertips coming forward. Maybe you like to fold in onto your forearms. And the tendency for us to kind of roll off of our sits bones when we move forward. So you can even use your hands or your forearms as a counterweight, so pushing down so your sits bones roll down. And that maybe gives rise to more space to the lower back. Good. One more breath in. And breath out. Good. And then let's come up. And we're going to switch the legs and go through some different movements through the spine. Let's inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, this time twisting towards the left side. Right hand can come onto the outer thigh. My left fingertips are behind me. Good. And for most of us, we have a tendency to either lean forward or to lean back in our twist, trying to really stay anchored in your axis. And that makes the spine heavier. And through that relationship to gravity, maybe your chest revolves a bit more. If the head wants to join the journey, it can. And then we'll come through center. Inhale, reaching the arms up. And exhale, twisting to the other side. If crossing the hands feels like it's too much, you can also go same hand, same knee. And again, letting the twist slowly evolve. No need to be fast. Also, heavy things move a little bit more slowly. Just maybe a bit more friction. But maybe the quality of your movement becomes a little bit more refined. Slowly come back to center. Inhale. And one more easy forward fold here. Maybe it's your hands. Maybe it's your forearms. If you want to extend all the way forward, be my guest. I know the camera is not picking up that area. So I'm going to stay more compact today. And noticing if your sits bones got light, can push back to stay heavy. One more breath in. And breath out. Good. And then you can come up. If you're facing the top of the mat, you can roll over your knees and just come straight onto hands and knees. If your knees do not like it, you can always swing the legs out through the side. And then arriving in your tabletop position. Just studying the hands just for a moment so that they're nice and spread, so that the weight of the shoulders can really drop down into the wrists. Same for the knees, underneath the hips, and so we can transmit the forces more efficiently. Let's take a few cat-cow. Inhale to lift the heart. Shoulder blades moving back. And as you exhale, pushing the earth into the ground, belly button to spine. A few more. If your knees are sensitive, you want to have a blanket underneath the knees, go ahead. Good. At any point you need to come up onto fists or forearms because your wrists are a bit sensitive, be my guest. Wonderful. And then let's take one block between the thighs. I like to go in the second kind of width. We want roughly the knees to stay in line with the hip sockets. And then we'll tuck the toes under this time. We're going to inhale to lift the heart. And as you exhale, you can squeeze the block around the spine and maybe the knees lift off of the floor just a tiny bit. Inhale, knees slowly coming back down, lifting through the heart. Exhale, rounding the spine. You can just imagine the knees lifting off or actually lift them off. And just feeling that it probably feels a bit heavy, and that's okay. Inhale. Exhale, puffing up through the kidneys, lifting the knees. And then last one. We're going to stay there and just breathe into that heaviness. Exhale, round, lifting the knees, and then just hanging out here for a moment. Just feeling the weight of the shoulders transferring into the hands. Continue to hug the block. Maybe there's a bit of a burn. And just accepting that. Knowing that that's the thing that builds the resilience. One more inhale. And then exhale, lowering the knees. You can get the block out and just move into a child's pose for a moment. If your arms are tired, you can also release the arms back for a moment. I'm going to stay a little bit higher up because I know the mic is a bit sensitive. Releasing through the arms. Maybe a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. To let that go. Great. And then let's slowly come back onto hands and knees. And from there into your downward facing dog. You can tuck the toes under. And still remember kind of the residue of the feeling of the block between the thighs. And that might help you squeeze through the inner thighs up and back. And starting to lengthen your downward facing dog. If today you need to keep your knees soft, that's perfectly fine. And also the heels do not have to touch the ground. That's not kind of the main purpose of a downward facing dog. We want extension through the spine. So the more we resist through the index finger ball mount and the thumb side, and we roll to move the hips up and back. Good. Take another breath in. Lifting up through the kneecaps. And exhale out. Inhale, let's come forward to a plank. And then exhale, we're going to lower the knees one more time. Good. Let's sit back onto your knees for a moment. Just a quick explainer. So when we move into chaturanga, we're going to do like baby push-ups. The elbows don't have to be completely on your side. There can be a slight angle. But quite often when we bend, the elbow creases kind of look towards one another and then the elbows point out. We want the sense that the outer armpits are rolling towards one another so that the elbows move backward. At the same time, if we roll this back too much, the hand starts to get a little bit lighter. So from the elbow downward, there's an inner spiral, index finger and thumb. And so finding that balance as you keep the shoulders broad. We'll start with some scapula push-ups so just to get some awareness. So that means I'm going to still pretend I have the block between the thighs. I'm going to inhale, push the space between the shoulder blades away from one another. And as I exhale, I'm going to let the shoulder blades hang. I'm not moving so much through my lower back. Belly button pulls in towards the spine. If you remember the block, it's still there in our imagination. Inhale again, puffing the space between the shoulder blades. And as I exhale, I move down. And you can do this a few more times at your own pace. I'm looking at my elbow creases and making sure that they don't kind of move out towards the side. The elbow crease is still looking forward so that whenever I'm ready and I bend through the elbows, then they're pointing back. Good. Next time, inhale, puffing up between the space, the shoulder blades. And then exhale, maybe you just bend a little bit, maybe you bend a lot. Inhale, coming up. And then exhale, you can round the spine and move into like an active child's pose. Inhale, coming forward, puffing up the space, elbow creases gazing forward. Exhale, maybe I'll bend a little bit. Or if you feel good, you can bend a lot, pressing back up as you inhale. And as I exhale, I round back. Maybe a few more at your own pace. And we want the sense that coming up and over doesn't mean that we need to only bend in front of the elbows, but we also don't want the elbows just moving back as our body just moves with the elbows. We want a sense that we're loading the tops of the fingers, and that's where it feels heavy. And I'm shaking, although I can do normal push-ups. I'm on my knees, and it still feels hard. Last one. You're going to come all the way down. Good. And then a little cobra. Inhale. Maybe the hands lift off as well. It doesn't need to be a lot. Pressing the toes into the ground, pubic bone into the ground, and then broadening through the collarbones. One more inhale. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Good. Let's walk the feet forward into a forward fold. You can be at the top of the mat. I don't have a lot of room there, so I'm going to stay relatively back. Maybe 2 fists between the feet or a little bit wider. And then letting your head go for a moment. And actually feeling the weight of your head. So if you actually let it go, it feels quite heavy. You can also nod a little bit, yes and no, to see if it's actually dangling. If you need to keep your knees soft, go ahead. Good. And then from there, let's roll all the way up. You can bend the knees a lot. And then vertebrae by vertebrae, slowly coming up. Good. Nice. Let's come into a tree pose for a moment. You can find a nice spot for you to balance, shifting the weight into the right foot. Let's turn the left leg out. Shin height, ankle height, all the way to the inside of the thigh. Good. And then sometimes we kind of hang out in our tree pose. You can sag in your standing leg. You can sort of lift up through the leg that's bent. You can shift the weight forward or backward, because when we actually stack everything, we need to work a little bit harder to be in the central line. And just connecting to the image of a tree, nice and big tree, dense wood, arm variation of your choice, and letting all the weight pour down into the center of the earth through the sole of your foot. Getting super solid. Good. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Other side, shifting the weight into the left leg, and then turning the right leg out. Again, wherever you want to express your tree. And then noticing again, if you're hanging out in your tree or you're trying too hard, is the weight forward? Is it back? How can you slowly stack the pieces to really feel this connection between the crown of the head, tailbone, and into the foot? Growing a little bit taller. And then I'm seeing this image of the rings of the tree. The older the tree gets, the more we have. And then maybe also having really dense rings. So it's nice, heavy wood, long-lasting, stable. And then you can slowly release this leg as well. And then let's come towards the top of the mat and we'll do a few chair poses. Let's bring the feet a little bit wider. I'm going to start off here so you can see a little bit better. And then you can bring your hands onto your hips. Just come into a chair pose for a moment. You can bounce a little bit, one knees and toes roughly pointing in the same direction, heart wide open. And then you can actually use your hands to get the knees apart. So I'm working hard and my legs are resisting from the inside. And you can also do the same from the outside. And noticing the muscles that need to work so my knees don't do like a Charleston. They're nice and solid. And that might start to build a stronger connection through the soles of the feet into the earth, staying very connected through the four corners of the feet. Good. Once you have that connection, you can bring your hands onto your hips again. Right knee continues to stay forward as we step the left foot back into a warrior two. And you can do this a few times, kind of touching and going, noticing where the weight wants to go as you transition. Maybe one leg has an easier time with this transition without the tendencies for the knee to collapse inward as we step back. So continuing to push it out as we step back. Good. You can also use your hands if that's helpful. So we got nice, solid, immovable knees as we transition. And so that the hips have to work harder in creating this external rotation as we move. Next time, the left foot is stepped back, right leg forward. Warrior two. Nice big stance if you want to make it a little bit more solid. And if you want to add the arms, shoulder height. Maybe it's just the gaze that wants to go beyond the right fingertips. And staying heavily sunken in through the front knee. Let's take a reverse inhale, keeping the deep bend through the front knee. And as we exhale, we're going to transition into triangle without losing that connection to the outer hip. Utthita Trikonasana can be lower, can be higher, see what you need. Today, the focus, quite often the knee kind of just hangs inward once we're in this position. If I then bend the knee is going to go diagonally inward. So I want to keep the same feeling of warrior two as I lift up the kneecap, extend the legs. So it's much more solid. It's much more anchored. If you want to turn the top palm up towards the front of the mat and reach the arm overhead, go ahead. So we have a bit more space here. Hugging the legs towards one another. Good. Breath in. Pull shoulder blades onto the back and out. Inhale. Let's come back up. And then the same way we transitioned, bending the front knee, pushing off the back leg, chair pose. Other side. Left leg stays nice and tall. I'm going to turn around. Right leg steps back. Ooh, my ankle is working like crazy. And then finding your warrior two on the second side. If your stance needs to evolve a bit, let it do that. And then arriving and feeling the weight pouring in through the feet. Maybe also noticing if you're heavier on the back leg, heavier on the front leg, distributing the weight nicely. Inhale, reverse. And as you exhale, starting to extend through the front leg while keeping this rotation so the leg stays heavy into your Utthita Trikonasana. Good. Again, for a lot of us, the outer edge of the foot is going to get heavy, staying heavy through the big toe while without collapsing inward. There's a lot of work there to make our legs super juicy, heavy. If you want to turn the top palm towards the top of the mat and extend the arms overhead, go ahead. Feeling the space through both sides of the ribs. Inhale and exhale. Good. Inhale. Let's come back up. And then exhale last time. You can step forward to chair pose. Maybe this time classic arms, Utkatasana. Feeling the solidity of the legs now that you've established it. And then let's fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, halfway lift. You can bring your hands onto your shins. Keep them down or have some blocks in front of you. Exhale to fold. Last one, inhale. And as you exhale, you can ground the hands. If you want to take a vinyasa here, go ahead. I'm not going to demo one. Otherwise, we'll meet in a downward facing dog and we'll continue from there. Let me just turn around. Good. And then we'll take one more standing flow. Let's step the right foot forward. If you want to take it through a three-legged, go ahead. I just have some blocks underneath my hands and makes the stepping through process a little bit easier. As you exhale, stepping the right foot through, high lunge. Take a moment to come up. Feeling the legs attracted to one another. So this heaviness is not just from the feet into the earth, but there's also a solidity within the body. Let's reach the arms up, inhale. And as you exhale, chest to thighs, arms reaching back. Few of these. Just start to feel the connection between the crown of the head and the back heel. So we want to move towards a nice straight line. So we're not rounded. We're not overarched. Pressing the back foot in. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Good. Let's take a little twist. Inhale. Exhale. You can lower the back knee. Another inhale to really cinch up your waist. And then exhale, turning towards the right side. Good. And then the front leg is basically the same place where it was in chair pose. So it doesn't really wobble anywhere. And from that solidity of the leg pressing into the earth, you can use your elbow to press into the thigh. Because if the leg is not solid, it's going to collapse inward. So from the heaviness of the leg, We can then create the spaciousness through the heart. If you want to tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee, go ahead. Inhale. Exhale, 4. Last one, inhale. Nice loose neck. Exhale, 5. Inhale, let's come back to center. And I'm going to step back on the mat a little bit so you have room. I'm going to come into an L stand. So you can shift the blocks forward. And so the bones are stacked. Depending on the length of your torso, the blocks are going to be further forward or backwards. And then you can take a little peek at your left toes. And they're going to point down. And then a lot of us, the bendy people, are going to hang here, which makes the pose a little bit lighter. But if you remember this connection from the back heel into the crown of the head, and then you can stay here or maybe get a little bit lighter onto your fingertips, and then you feel the standing leg have to work a lot to hold the whole weight, any arm variation of your choice, and then just pouring the weight into the ground for another 3, 2, and 1. Hands come back down. Left toes come back down, grounding through the hands, Vinyasa or downward facing dog. I'm going to take an easy one. We're going to come forward. Inhale to open the heart. And exhale, downward facing dog. We have the same sequence on the other side. So let's lift the left leg, getting ready to step it through. Exhale, high lunge. Nice big stance coming up. And then again, finding the connection, noticing if you're kind of sickling through the back leg. Inhale here. Then exhale, chest to thighs as the arms reach back. Starting to create this internal proprioception. Nice long spine. Maybe a couple more. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. And exhale. Let's take it. Inhale up. And then exhale, back knee slowly comes down towards the ground. Okay. I like to inhale, feel the inner thighs work again so I can suck my belly button in. And from there, exhale, twisting to the left, right elbow to the outside of the thigh. And then you can press the hands into one another. And then again, because this front leg is not wobbly, it's super dense. That's why I can press the elbow in, and that gives the spaciousness across the heart. Good. And also using the strength of the elbows. If they're not in one line, I have much less power to press into. But if I have one long line from one elbow to the other, I can really, I don't want to say crack my back open, but you can really have this lever through this density. Inhale back to center. And then exhale, I'm going to step back a little bit so I have room on my mat. L stand, bringing the blocks forward. Right toes pointing down. And then finding this connection from the back heel into the crown of the head. Nice. And noticing if you have the tendency to round, if you have the tendency to overarch. Inner thighs activating. Ooh, I don't even want to come up onto my fingertips because it feels heavy in the standing leg. But maybe the hands come towards the heart or any other variation of your choice. If you're brave, you can reach them forward. Shaking for 3, 2, and 1. Slowly releasing the back leg, hands ground. Vinyasa of your choice, or we'll meet in down dog or child's pose for a moment. I'm going to come into child. Just allowing the bones to rest. Good. And then I propose for today, we're going to come into dolphin pose. And depending on where you are in your practice, I'll give you a few options. We'll do it 2 rounds. And you can hop off the bus at any point and just come back into a softer variation, or you can also go into puppy. I like having a block between the hands because my elbows want to do this. I should train my elbows to not do it, but for today, I'm just going to take a block between the thumb and the index finger so they kind of make an L shape. And then I can really focus on grounding through your index finger and thumb side. Elbows are roughly outer shoulder width. And then you can tuck the toes under and come up and back. Let's actually do 3 rounds. Yeah. And then if you're not used to bearing so much weight through your forearms, this might feel quite heavy already. If that's the case, just being there, the knees can be soft slightly. Instead of coming forward, that can also feel heavy. For today, we're going to think about lifting the hips up and back. Heart wants to melt back. Can let the head hang. Shoulders nice and broad. If you have the space, you can start to lift up through the kneecaps. Good. Breath in and breath out. And you can lower onto your knees. Let's just come up, active hand into passive hand. And just being there for a moment. Good. And then we're going to go in one more time. This time, option to bring one leg up. So we did poses like a warrior 3, where we have that same relationship between the leg and the legs towards one another, or we were working on this position. We have a long line. And same thing here. We're going to ground through the elbows, come up. Left leg more to center, so you can lift the right leg up. Good. And we're not stacking the hips. We're hugging in and pushing through the elbows, expressing our heel upwards. And again, kind of flaring, pulling in. Other side, right foot grounds, maybe 3 breaths on each side. Left leg lifts. And then again, noticing, you can always look at the toe, allowing it to point down. Another 3, 2, and 1. Coming back down. Again, sitting up and just allowing the strength to build here in this upper body. Bit by bit. Good. So you can repeat any of those, or if you want to just lean into the impossibility, you can come back into dolphin pose. This time walking as close in as possible. You can also bring the feet mat width distance apart, just to the point where you feel like you're going to collapse forward, but you're not. You're pressing so much into the forearms, so much into the hands, and you're just staying here for 5. Leaning forward, and you're resisting through the heart. 3. Shaking. 2. And 1. Good. Coming back. Good. And just letting things settle. And I hope it's clear that my message is not, push, push, push. You have to get better and better, but it's a lot of those balancing poses like pincha or handstand. We want to balance, we want to get light in them, but we avoid the positions that are the hardest. And once our nervous system can relax in those positions, then the stacking will come naturally. Okay, let's simply come onto our backs from there. You can take a block with you. And then feet hip width distance apart. Good. And you can just move your hips up and down for a moment. And just noticing how it now feels like to be on the back. Excuse me. And feeling the weight from the knees straight into the feet. And maybe after all this work we did in chair, if the knees are super solid as you come up. Let's come into a classic bridge pose when you're ready, pressing the feet into the ground, lifting the hips, and then we're going to interlace the hands behind the back, and then open through the armpits in the other direction. Good. And then just allowing yourself to hang here for a moment. And towards the end of practice, you can start to allow heaviness to, not to resist it so much, allowing it more into the bones, the spaces between the cells. Slowly come down. Good. And then you can hug the knees in towards the chest, maybe drawing some circles. Good. Our hips had to stabilize quite a bit, so let's come into figure 4 position. You can simply stay here or hold on to the back of the thigh, back of the shin. As one of those positions where we feel like we kind of lift up because the leg is lifting. It's going to get deeper when you start to ground through the back of the head, the shoulder blades, and your tailbone. So maybe making the bind a little bit softer, but working on the grounding through the upper body, then trying to reach something that's not, that's less grounding. Good. Let's take it into an easy twist. You can release the feet, hands out to the side or a cactus, and then you can allow the whole construct to move a little bit towards the left. If you want to reorganize your legs, go ahead. Nice and easy twist. You can stack them, you can interlace them deeper, whatever feels nice for your side body. And then we'll come through center. Same sequence on the other side, so left ankle on top of the right thigh to begin with. And again, maybe interlacing the fingers behind the thighs or behind your shin. Now primarily focusing on this broadening, this gooiness through the back body. Maybe this side feels different. And then releasing the foot. Arms into cactus. And then easy twist. Props are in the way, just move them out of the way. And then let's slowly come to center. And you can take it into classic Shavasana if you like. I feel like keeping the knees bent today in a constructive rest, so I'll be in a constructive rest for a moment. Arm position. For Shavasana, palms turned up. I have my hands here in my groins to feel like a softening or a heaviness through the hip flexors. Maybe a breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And just a few breaths here to let the organs really hammock. And the pelvic floor releases. And last night while I was teaching Yin, I really felt in certain positions like my flesh hanging. Due to gravity, due to the heaviness. It's also another thing we try to avoid or think it's not pretty. But we're bags of flesh, and liquid contained within bags of liquid. And so it's normal for us to hang and drape. That's one way we can express our heaviness. Things are settling. Things are making an imprint. So maybe it's the skin on your face that kind of droopy a little bit. Inner thighs, sides of the waist. I'm going to stay quiet for just a few minutes. And for today, I'm going to slowly come back out. If you want to stay longer in your Shavasana, you can just turn off the video, do your thing. I'm going to slowly start to move through the knees. And then roll over onto one side. And then press myself up. I hope you've enjoyed this practice today. I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.